show how I tried to teach my chickens to recognize and peck the letter A using fridge magnet letters. I wanted to see if they could tell the letter A from the other letters. I figured since they can recognize basic shapes and colors, they could probably do this too. This was the first trick that I tried to teach them, so first of all I had to get them to learn how to peck a target. So I made a very simple target by just getting a piece of adhesive foil tape and taping it onto a stick. But you can also use a piece of ordinary household tin foil if you wanted. And then I made a little cup out of the foil, put a few bits of grain into the cup, and the chickens would come over and peck the grain, and they would start to associate pecking the tin foil with the food. I took the chickens one at a time to the garage so I could work with them one-on-one, and started to teach them how to peck the tin foil. At first, they just kind of stared at it and didn't know what to do. One of them was even a bit scared of it, and it took a little while for them to figure it out. Which brings me to another point, which is during all the training that I did with the chickens, I left the door open. That way I would be sure that they weren't afraid of being in there and they didn't mind being in there, and they liked the training sessions. Because if they didn't, they could just walk out the door and leave. And in a couple of days, the chickens figured out how to peck the foil. Then I taped the orange letter A to the foil, and they quickly learned to peck the A that was taped to the target. The next step was to take away the foil and to try to get the chickens just to peck the letter A attached to the end of the stick. At first, some of them weren't sure what to do, and some of them learned quicker than others, but eventually all 6 of them learned to peck the A in order to get a treat. So now I had to figure out if they could tell the A from the other letters. I really had no idea what the best way to do that would be, so I tried a few different things. First, I used clips to clip the letters to the board, but that wasn't ideal because it covered part of the letter, and I could only put up a couple of letters at a time.
What are you staring at me for? What are you staring at me for? Over there, chicken. It's over here. It is. That's not the right one. No, not the right one. Try the other one. Try the other one. There's 2 of them there. There's 2 of them. No, it's not that either. Come on over here. That one. There we go.
So then I just simply started to put the letters onto the floor, which was simple and easy, and you could move them around, but you could really only manage like 3 or 4 letters tops at a time. Then I figured, since they were fridge magnets letters, why not try using a magnetic whiteboard? So that worked quite well. I could put a lot of letters onto the board, but I was finding they were making a lot of mistakes. So then I just tried lining them up on a simple old piece of lumber I had laying around. That was actually the simplest thing of all. I could add quite a few letters onto the board. The only problem was the letters kept falling off. So to stop the letters from falling off the board all the time, I built a long tray with little individual compartments that I could put each letter into, and I could spread out as many letters as I wanted. But what I was finding is that even with all these different ways of trying to do it, they were still making mistakes, and I was starting to get a bit discouraged and thinking, well, maybe they just can't figure it out. You know, they're chickens. Maybe it's too hard for them. But then I started to notice that they were doing okay if the letters were a bit further away. They were making the most mistakes when the letters were up close. So the closer they were to the letters, the more mistakes they made. So then I started to put the chickens a few feet away from where I wanted them to make the choice, and then move the target, and that way they walked 4 or 5 feet until they had to make a choice. And the accuracy went way up. They were now doing 80 or 90% accuracy all the time. So now I could keep adding more and more letters and see how many letters I could put in there, and they could still pick out the A. And I found that with pretty good accuracy, I could put the entire alphabet into the tray, move the letter A into different positions, and they were still able to pick it out. Not 100% of the time, but around 80 or 90% of the time. I worked with all 6 of the chickens, and all 6 chickens were able to do it.